Chapter 51:16. Lu Ming's Genesis technique was still in its infancy stage, and was far from the peak. There was still a lot of room for improvement. Such a huge battle was very beneficial to Lu Ming. He could unleash his Genesis techniques to the fullest, comprehend them during the battle, and perfect his own Genesis techniques. He vaguely felt like he had become a little shorter, and his body had shrunk a little. Yes, this was not a misconception. When he used a Genesis technique, his body would grow to 3 feet tall and swell up. And now his body seemed to have shrunk a little. Although it was very small, Lu Ming could still feel it. Lu Ming was overjoyed. This was because his Genesis technique had improved. Why did he grow to 3 feet tall when he used a Genesis technique? Wasn't it because his Genesis technique was still in its infancy stage, and was not perfect enough? Lu Ming's control over it was not perfect enough, causing the origin energy to spread. As his comprehension of Genesis techniques deepened, his control over them grew steadier and steadier. His body would shrink when he used Genesis techniques. When he truly mastered the technique, there would be no difference with his body when he used it. It would be no different from normal. Lu Ming was still very far away from this level. But he had indeed improved in the battle just now. Lu Ming became even more excited. He roared at the sky, ignoring his injuries and fighting with all his strength. This made the 8 clans of the Forbidden Area shiver. He was too much of a monster. He was actually using an origin level formation to train his Genesis technique. Set up the combination formation, and kill him together with the origin level formation. Someone shouted. Without any hesitation, the 8 clans of the Forbidden Area began to set up the formation. At this moment, there were already over 500 Origin Realm experts rushing over from other directions. Swish, swish, swish. Their figures flashed as they set up combination formation after combination formation. In order to kill Lu Ming, the 8 clans of the Forbidden Area had spent a great deal of resources to set up various terrifying combination formations. This was not an ordinary 3 to 5 person joint attack formation. Even the weakest one was a 7-person joint attack formation. There were even 9-person joint attack formations. Origin level combination formations and Divine Lord level combination formations were not only vastly different in power, but the carriers were also much more difficult to create. Generally speaking, it was already very rare for 3 people to attack a formation together. As for the combined formations of 7 to 9 cultivators, even the Forbidden Grounds did not have many of them. Losing even one of them would cause them great heartache. This time, the 8 clans of the Forbidden Ground deployed a total of 5 9-man combined attack arrays, 5 7-man combined attack arrays, and a total of 10 combined attack arrays to attack Lu Ming. Draw a red envelope. The 10 combined formations transformed into battle swords, demonic spiders, and malicious ghosts. They unleashed terrifying power as they attacked Lu Ming. Together with the source-grade formations, they were going to kill Lu Ming. Are they finally making a move? Very good. Then let's break through. At this moment, Lu Ming did not continue to suppress his cultivation. The remaining energy from the cosmic sea was instantly converted into the power of the forbidden origin. Lu Ming's cultivation level could no longer be suppressed. It directly broke through the barrier of the middle stage of origin, and charged into the middle stage of origin. Lu Ming's cultivation level skyrocketed, and so did the power of the forbidden origin. The people of the 8 Forbidden Grounds almost bit their tongues. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. What did they just see? Mid-reciprocity. Lu Ming had broken through again. Hadn't Lu Ming just broken through to reciprocity? How could he break through again? Unbelievable. Unimaginable. Not good. Many people felt chills run down their spines. Although he had reached the late stage of the origin tribulation, he was still in the origin tribulation. Only early reciprocity existences could move freely without being affected. Those above mid-reciprocity would still be greatly affected. Once they emerged, they would be suppressed by the origin tribulation, and their origin roots would be devoured. However, creatures who broke through under the origin tribulation did not face this problem. This was because living beings like them had already gained the recognition of the cosmic sea. Let alone mid-reciprocity, they could even reach late reciprocity, peak reciprocity, or even higher without any problems. They would not be suppressed by the calamity of origin. This was also the reason why Lu Ming dared to break through to mid-reciprocity. Kill. Lu Ming roared, as if he had endless power. The war god spear was like a pillar that held up the sky, piercing through the sky. Then, it blasted towards a 9-man joint attack formation. This 9-man joint attack formation condensed a war blade. It was suffused with a hazy light, and emitted an evil aura. It was the joint attack formation of the nefarious race. Clang. The war blade and spear collided, and the void was torn apart. Thousands of forces swept out in all directions. In the next moment, the joint attack formation of the nefarious race exploded. The 9 people who had set up the formation screamed and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Their bodies were covered in cracks like porcelain. They frantically retreated, wanting to get away from Lu Ming. However, after retreating for a while, their bodies exploded. Not even their souls were left. They had all died. Only a hazy warblade was left floating in the air. The joint attack formation of the origin tribulation. Lu Ming did not hesitate. With a wave of his hand, he put the joint attack formation into his storage ring. The people of the 8 forbidden races were stunned. His battle prowess was too terrifying. One move. Just one move was enough to destroy a 9-man joint attack formation. It was too terrifying. Buzz. After Lu Ming destroyed a 9-man joint attack formation, he did not stop at all. He swept out his war god spear, and collided with the other joint attack formations. A series of explosions rang out. The other 9 joint attack formations were all repelled by Lu Ming. As for Lu Ming, although he was also pushed back, he immediately stabilized himself. He flapped the wings on his back and charged towards one of the joint attack formations. Then he swung his spear again. Block it. The person who had set up the joint attack formation was terrified. He roared and used all his strength to block Lu Ming's attack. However, it was all in vain. Under the pressure of the war god spear, the joint attack formation shook violently. Then it exploded. The person who had set up the formation was drowned by the destructive power, and died on the spot. Another carrier of the 9-man combined attack array landed in Lu Ming's hands. Afterwards, Lu Ming changed his attack and attacked another joint attack formation. However, at this moment, the source-level formation's soul arrived and blocked Lu Ming's attack. Retreat. Retreat. The other people who had set up the joint attack formation were terrified. They quickly retreated, wanting to leave the source-level formation. There was a huge gap between their battle prowess and Lu Ming's. Even with the joint attack formation, it was not enough. If this continued, they would all be destroyed by Lu Ming. If it were not for the help of the formation soul, another joint attack formation would have been destroyed. Looks like I've broken your source-level formation. Lu Ming went crazy and fought with the formation soul. This time, he actually began to suppress the formation soul. Before he had broken through to mid-reciprocity, Lu Ming had been suppressed by the formation soul, and was at a disadvantage. However, as soon as he broke through, he began to suppress the formation soul. It could only be said that the difference between each breakthrough in the reciprocity realm was huge. There were only 4 minor realms in the reciprocity realm. They were early, mid, late, and peak. Therefore, with each breakthrough of a minor realm, the source power would skyrocket tremendously. Ordinary people were like this, let alone Lu Ming. Chapter 51:17. Boom. In an instant, Lu Ming and the soul of the array exchanged more than 10 moves. The soul of the array trembled, and its light dimmed. Crack. Crack. The origin bones let out strange sounds and cracks appeared on them. The 36 people who had set up the array trembled and blood flowed out of the corners of their mouths. The origin level array was about to explode. Continue to set up the array. Stack the origin level array and kill him. The elder of the extreme fiend race roared. There were 8 forbidden races present. They had more than 500 origins. It was impossible for there to be only one origin level array. Immediately, many origin level experts who were proficient in arrays took action. They took out their origin bones and began to set up arrays. Origin level array masters didn't need origin bones to set up origin level arrays. They could use runes to set up the arrays. However, using runes to set up the arrays took time. Without enough time, the arrays they set up wouldn't be very powerful. With origin bones as the array foundation, the speed of setting up the arrays would be very fast and the power would be able to keep up. Buzz. Buzz. The void trembled as runes filled the sky. Soon, 2 more offensive arrays were set up. They also burned their origin bones and released the energy of their origin bones. They condensed an array and charged at Lu Ming. The 3 arrays were stacked and condensed into 3 array souls. For a moment, they were locked in a fierce battle with Lu Ming. Take out the ultimate weapon and kill him. Someone from the 9 demonic spiders shouted. A dozen very old 9 demonic spiders worked together to take out a mirror. Boom. As soon as the mirror appeared, it grew rapidly and covered the sky. It erupted with terrifying power, as if it could crush the void. The surrounding space completely exploded and was destroyed, turning into chaos. A pseudo-immortal weapon. The 9 demonic spiders are really generous. They actually took out a pseudo-immortal weapon. Someone exclaimed. Hello everyone. Our public account will find gold and coins in red packets every day. You can receive them as long as you follow the last benefit at the end of the year. Please seize the opportunity. Our public account. A pseudo-immortal weapon. Lu Ming's expression was extremely solemn. A pseudo-immortal weapon was a weapon that surpassed origin-level divine weapons. Generally speaking, it was a weapon exclusive to those who had transcended the immortal tribulation. It was extremely terrifying. How could anyone with the word immortal be simple? However, normally speaking, it would be very difficult for reciprocity experts to control pseudo-immortal weapons, nor would they be able to unleash the power of pseudo-immortal weapons. Clearly, the living beings in the Forbidden Grounds were not to be underestimated. They had most likely used some sort of secret technique to activate the quasi-immortal weapon. It's not a complete pseudo-immortal weapon. There are cracks. Lu Ming discovered that there were a few small cracks on the surface of the mirror. If one didn't look carefully, it would be hard to notice. It was a broken quasi-immortal weapon. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why the 9 demonic spider was able to control a quasi-immortal armament. The mirror shone brightly as a beam of light shot towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's figure flickered rapidly, wanting to evade. However, it was as if he was locked in place. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't evade. He could only take it head-on. In an instant, the light beam approached Lu Ming. Lu Ming had no choice but to push his battle prowess to the limit, holding the spear with both hands and lashing out in the air. The war god spear was even larger than a mountain. Divine light surrounded it as it struck the light pillar. Boom. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he retreated. At the same time, he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. His body emitted white smoke as if it was being burned and corroded. Even the top source-grade battle armor couldn't resist it. Holes appeared on it. A top source-grade battle armor was half destroyed. Even the war god spear had dimmed, almost breaking. In just one move, Lu Ming was heavily injured. The power of a quasi-immortal weapon was beyond imagination. It was extremely terrifying. In fact, the 9 demonic spider was even more shocked. Lu Ming could actually survive one move. One had to know that this was a quasi-immortal weapon left behind by an expert who had undergone the second immortal tribulation. It was extremely powerful. Even if it was damaged, its power wasn't something that an ordinary origin realm cultivator could resist. Lu Ming could actually survive one move head-on. His vitality was truly terrifying. Continue. The 9 demonic spider roared. He wanted to continue using the quasi-immortal weapon to kill Lu Ming. If it weren't for the human king's broken sword being isolated, I would have broken your quasi-immortal weapon. Lu Ming snorted coldly. This time he didn't wait for the opponent to attack again. He rushed in a direction. Swish. He and the spear became one, turning into a spear light that seemed eternal. On the other side, a formation soul wanted to stop him, but it was directly pushed back by Lu Ming. Stop him. He wants to break out of the encirclement. Someone roared. Stop him. Stop him with all your strength. The 8 clans of the Forbidden Area roared, especially the experts who had set up the source-grade formation. They directly dispersed the formation souls and turned into multicolored light that filled the sky. Like countless divine swords, they attacked Lu Ming. There were even joint attack formations that blocked in front of Lu Ming. Although the quasi-immortal weapon was powerful, it was too difficult to use. It required a certain amount of time. Break. Lu Ming went all out. All the cells in his body emitted multicolored light as if they were burning, raising his battle strength to the limit. He wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to break out of the encirclement or destroy the forbidden weapon domain before the opponent launched the second attack. Bam bam, bam. The terrifying attacks condensed by the source-grade formation were all broken by Lu Ming. Then he directly hit a joint attack formation. This combined attack array was also a 9-man combined attack array. However, in the face of Lu Ming, who had raised his combat power to the maximum, it was completely useless. It was like a balloon that exploded when the spear gleam pierced through it. Swish. Lu Ming rushed in front of a huge formation flag. This formation flag was one of the foundations of the forbidden weapon domain. Oh no! The expressions of the 8 clans of the forbidden area changed drastically. Kill! Some people of the 9 demonic spider roared and desperately activated their quasi-immortal weapon. The broken mirror emitted a dazzling multicolored light again, forming a beam of light that shot towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming waved the war god spear and ruthlessly struck the formation flag. Bam! Although this array flag was extremely sturdy, it could not withstand Lu Ming's attack. It simply exploded and turned into pieces. As long as one of the formation flags was shattered, the forbidden weapon domain would collapse. At this moment, the beam of light of the quasi-immortal weapon also appeared above Lu Ming's head. At this critical moment, Lu Ming finally regained contact with the Human King's broken sword. In an instant, the Human King's broken sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand and slashed at the sky. A shocking sword light erupted and slashed at the beam of light. With a puff, the beam of light was directly split open like a piece of rotten wood meeting a divine weapon. Now it's my turn. Lu Ming's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. The wings on his back flapped and his figure soared into the sky, rushing towards the quasi-immortal weapon and slashing out with his sword. Clang! The Human King's broken sword slashed at the quasi-immortal weapon mirror. Immediately, the mirror shattered into pieces and scattered. The 9 demonic spiders who were controlling the quasi-immortal weapon all vomited large mouthfuls of blood, their faces pale. Run! Retreat! The 8 clans of the forbidden area roared and fled in all directions. Chapter 51:18. The 8 clans of the forbidden area immediately fled in all directions. As soon as they saw Lu Ming break through the forbidden weapon domain and reconnect with the Human King's broken sword, they knew that they were done for. There was no way they could do anything to Lu Ming today. They could only run, or they would all die. Kill! Lu Ming roared, his killing intent soaring into the sky. The Human King's broken sword slashed out with all its strength. A shocking sword light tore through the sky, as if it was splitting the universe. PFF. In an instant, 5 or 6 Origin Realm experts were killed. Their souls were annihilated, and they died on the spot. Next, Lu Ming flapped his wings and chased after them like a bolt of lightning. The Human King's broken sword constantly slashed out. Every time he slashed out, at least 2 people were killed. Blood dyed the void. Scatter! The 8 clans of the forbidden area were terrified. They did not dare to gather together and scattered, afraid that they would be killed by Lu Ming with a single slash. Even so, there were still people who died at Lu Ming's hands. When Lu Ming was at the peak of the Divine Lord realm, he could use Genesis techniques and rely on the wings on his back to surpass these origins. Now Lu Ming's cultivation had skyrocketed to mid-origin realm. His origin power had increased by 100 times, and his speed had increased by too much. It was just too fast. They could only see a rainbow light flickering in the vast universe. It was faster than lightning, and every time it flickered, it would take at least 1 life. The 8 clans of the forbidden area were almost scared to death. They frantically fled. Some people screamed in fright. They found that they were like babies when facing Lu Ming. They were too weak. This situation made them despair. Some people even swore that as long as they could escape this time, they would hide in their headquarters for the next few hundred years. They would not provoke Lu Ming. As long as they could endure these few hundred years, Lu Ming would be dead once the origin power calamity was over. Old man, where do you think you're going? Lu Ming targeted an old man from the extreme fiend race. Lu Ming had wanted to kill this old man for a long time now. Unfortunately, he was always the loudest, and also the fastest to flee. But this time, Lu Ming would not let this person go. Ah, this old man is finished. The elder from the extreme evil clan screamed miserably. Then Lu Ming struck him with his sword and killed him. This massacre lasted for a full half an hour. Lu Ming chased them for hundreds of millions of miles, and killed a total of 151 origins before it finally came to an end. The storage bags and storage rings left behind by these people naturally fell into Lu Ming's hands. Among them, the most precious was the broken pseudo-immortal weapon. Although it had been shattered by Lu Ming, its fragments were still incomparably precious. If Qiu ate it later, it would definitely be a great tonic. Of course, the treasures left behind by the 151 origins were also massive. Lu Ming didn't have the time to sort them out, so he collected them all. But Lu Ming didn't want to let it go just like that. He had already killed more than 250 origins from the 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands. There was no room for reconciliation with the 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands. They would not rest until one of them was dead. The 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands would never let Lu Ming go. They would kill Lu Ming as soon as they had the chance. Therefore, Lu Ming would never let the 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands go. He would kill them as soon as he had the chance. Now was a very good time. Now those above the Middle Origin realm could not move freely. They were still in a state of self-restraint. Now that he was at the Middle Origin realm, he could be said to be invincible. What would happen if he killed his way to the headquarters of the 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands? He would do it right away. Even if he couldn't destroy the 8 clans of the Forbidden Lands, he would kill them until they were terrified and plunder a large amount of resources. This place was closest to the headquarters of the 9 demonic spider race, the 9 demonic ruins. Lu Ming directly rushed to the 9 demonic ruins. Lu Ming's figure moved, directly tearing through space. His speed was extremely shocking. In just a day, Lu Ming arrived outside the 9 demonic ruins. After arriving at the 9 demonic ruins, Lu Ming knew he was overthinking things. That was because he could feel the terrifying aura of the 9 demonic ruins from afar. It was a kind of heart-stopping feeling. Lu Ming activated the demonic king rune, and looked at the 9 demonic ruins. Immediately, the 9 demonic ruins changed in his eyes. Dense runes appeared. Those were formations. He was certain that they were all Origin Realm formations. They were connected to each other, rising and falling continuously. He didn't know just how many there were, but they enveloped the vast 9 demonic ruins. There was even an Origin Realm expert standing guard at every set distance. It could be said that the 9 demonic ruins was completely defended. Once a living being entered, it would enter the 9 demonic ruins, and all the source-level formations would be activated to launch a destructive attack. With so many Origin Realm formations activated at the same time, Lu Ming had reason to believe that any Origin Realm expert would die if they entered. Even ordinary immortal tribulation existences wouldn't be able to withstand it. Lu Ming naturally didn't think that the 9 demonic spiders were guarding against him. In truth, the 9 demonic spiders that were scattered by Lu Ming hadn't returned yet. Lu Ming had arrived at the 9 demonic ruins earlier than those people. It's most likely the people guarding the outerverse. Lu Ming muttered. Now that the universe channel had opened, countless experts of the great cosmos had swarmed in. Even the various forbidden lands were on guard, not daring to relax. It was normal for them to set up heavy defenses in their headquarters. However, these Origin Realm formations are useless against me. Lu Ming muttered. The Demon King rune in his eyes flickered with a mysterious light. The secrets of these Origin Realm formations were completely exposed to Lu Ming. Soon, he discovered the loopholes of these Origin Realm formations. As long as he entered the 9 demonic ruins through these loopholes, he wouldn't alarm the 9 demonic spiders. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming restrained his aura and approached the 9 demonic ruins silently. He planned to enter the 9 demonic ruins through the loopholes of the array formation, and secretly plundered the treasures of the 9 demonic ruins. But just as Lu Ming approached the 9 demonic ruins, his body couldn't help but tense up. His hair stood on end, and a chill rushed from the bottom of his heart to the top of his head. Danger, extreme danger. It was as if some primordial beast was awakening at the center of the 9 demonic ruins. Lu Ming sensed a terrifying consciousness, shrouding the entire 9 demonic ruins. It was constantly circulating. Lu Ming was certain that no living creature that entered the 9 demonic ruins would be able to escape the shroud of this consciousness. Lu Ming retreated without hesitation. He only heaved a long sigh of relief when he was far away. Suddenly he realized that his whole body was cold. He had just broken out in a cold sweat. Even at his level he was covered in cold sweat. It was obvious how nervous he was just now. There's a terrifying expert among the 9 demonic spiders. Its consciousness has awakened and shrouded the entire 9 demonic ruins, Lu Ming muttered. He already knew that some terrifying existences were still sealed and couldn't come out, but their consciousnesses could already appear. There were such existences in the Tsongqing divine realm. Back then, when the 8 clans of the Forbidden Land besieged the Tsongqing divine realm and wanted to kill Lu Ming, a few ancestors' consciousnesses appeared in the Tsongqing divine realm and stood on Lu Ming's side, wanting to protect him. Chapter 51:19. Now, in the Azure divine realm, a terrifying existence's consciousness had manifested and shrouded the 9 demonic ruins. Obviously, it was guarding against the outerverse powerhouses. Obviously, the 9 demonic spider was very cautious. After all, the universe was vast, and there were all kinds of creatures. Even if there were creatures that could break through various arrays and silently enter the 9 demonic ruins, they would not be surprised. This was because the 9 demonic spider knew that there were such creatures in the cosmic sea that could ignore all kinds of arrays. Therefore, they had a terrifying ancestor's consciousness that shrouded the 9 demonic ruins. This way, they would be foolproof. Lu Ming pondered for a moment, and decisively retreated. Even if he was a human king, it would not work. The waters of the Forbidden Lands were too deep, and this was the headquarters of the Forbidden Lands. Who knew what would happen if he barged in? One had to know that in the prehistoric continent, human kings would be injured if they trampled on the Forbidden Lands. After leaving the 9 demonic ruins, Lu Ming did not return to the Azure Divine Realm. Instead, he headed towards the land of extreme evil. He still wanted to try his luck. However, when he approached the land of extreme evil, he stopped in his tracks. This was because the land of extreme evil was the same as the 9 demonic ruins. It was also covered in layers of arrays, and a terrifying existence's consciousness had manifested and shrouded the entire land of extreme evil. It seemed that Lu Ming's plan was going to fail. The universe was too chaotic now. Even the major Forbidden Lands were on guard, and did not dare to relax. Needless to say, most of the other Forbidden Lands were the same. Lu Ming could not be bothered to make a wasted trip. Therefore, he could not help but think of the Heaven Destroyer's base. How was the Heaven Destroyer's base now? Lu Ming was glad that the few universe passageways were in the Western universe. There were no universe passageways in the Eastern universe. Moreover, the Eastern and Western universes were separated by a vast void zone. The living beings of the Outerverse should not have gone to the Eastern universe yet. Although there were 3 Forbidden Lands in the Eastern universe, a portion of the Heaven Destroyer's early-stage origin source would awaken. With the Danden's Source Great Array, it should be enough to protect itself. However, Lu Ming was still a little worried. He planned to wait until his cultivation was stronger before returning to the Eastern universe. It was only a matter of time before the Outerverse living beings would head to the Eastern universe, and chaos would ensue there as well. Lu Ming left the land of extreme evil and returned to the Azure Divine Realm. It's Lu Ming. Lu Ming is back. He broke through. He successfully broke through under the crisis of origin energy and reached reciprocity. He even reached mid-reciprocity and killed many experts from the 8 races. Terrifying. What a miracle. Lu Ming's return to the Azure Divine Realm caused a huge commotion. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. News of Lu Ming being surrounded by the 8 clans of the Forbidden Land, and then breaking through to the mid-stage of reciprocity at the critical moment, and killing the 8 clans of the Forbidden Land spread. After all, there were so many people from the 8 clans in the Forbidden Area. If even one of them revealed a little to their disciples or friends, it would be very easy for the news to spread. This news was too shocking. As soon as it was released, it spread throughout the universe at the speed of a hurricane. When Lu Ming went to the Nining demonic ruins and the land of extreme evil and returned to the Azure divine realm from there, the news had already spread like wildfire. This was too shocking. Even the living beings of the Outerverse were shocked. Lu Ming had just suppressed everyone on the sky-trampling platform and seized the highest platform, and then he had caused such a huge commotion. Not only had he broken through under the crisis of origin energy, but he had also reached mid-reciprocity in one go. This speed was simply terrifying. Such a freak would attract the attention of the world, even in the top great cosmoses of the cosmic sea. Everyone knew that an extraordinary freak had risen. As long as he did not die, his future achievements would be immeasurable. Would there be another human monarch in the antediluvian universe? Don't worry. The antediluvian universe core has shattered, and no one knows where it is. The laws of the entire universe are incomplete. No matter how talented he is, it will be difficult for him to transcend and become an immortal. Someone from the great cosmos sneered. Everyone nodded. It was indeed so. Some people felt sad for Lu Ming. With such talent, if placed in a complete great cosmos, his achievements would be limitless. It was not impossible for another human monarch to appear. Unfortunately, the great cosmos was shattered, and the laws were incomplete. At most, he would only be able to transcend the immortal tribulation. It would be difficult for him to transcend and become an immortal. In such an environment, it would be useless even if his talent was 10 times stronger. How ridiculous! It's impossible for him to transcend the immortal tribulation. Once the crisis of origin is over, he will definitely die. People from the 8 clans of the Forbidden Zone spread the news. This matter caused a stir for a few days before it died down. This was because everyone's attention had shifted to another major event. A group of geniuses was about to start breaking through. Yes, most of the geniuses who had obtained the fortune on the sky-trampling platform were ready to give it a try. However, the truth was cruel. Several geniuses who had tried at the beginning had failed and turned into ashes under the Great Crisis of Origin. The Great Crisis of Origin did not become violent again because of Lu Ming's breakthrough. It was similar to when Tian Chong had broken through, but it was still extremely difficult. Several geniuses who had broken through 4 times had their bodies and souls destroyed. This cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. Some geniuses who were about to break through had no choice but to stop, not daring to rashly break through. However, not everyone was frightened. There were still people who were very confident in themselves and believed that they were unparalleled. Even if their combat strength was inferior to others, they would not be inferior in other aspects and would definitely be able to break through. However, 7 or 8 people tried to break through in a row, but all of them died. None of them succeeded. There was even an existence who had broken through 5 times who had failed. The success rate of breaking through was shockingly low. This seemed to prove that Shi Tianting was extraordinary back then. Although Shi Tianting was the first to break through, the Great Crisis of Origin had not yet become violent and was not that powerful. However, one had to know that Shi Tianting had not obtained the fortune of the sky-trampling platform. It could only be said that Shi Tianting's combat strength might not be as good as some people's, but he was definitely top-notch in other aspects. His physical body and soul, as well as his own willpower and so on. The continuous failure of many people finally made many people stop. The success rate of breaking through in the current environment was too low. It was simply a 9 out of 10 chance of survival. They were all peerless geniuses. Although breaking through under the Great Crisis of Origin would give them endless benefits, once they failed, there would be nothing. The price was too great. With their talent and potential, even if they did not break through under the Great Crisis of Origin, their achievements would still be shocking. Moreover, breaking through under the Great Crisis of Origin was just a kind of fortune. In the future, they might be able to obtain other fortunes that were even greater than this. They might not be inferior to those who broke through under the Great Crisis of Origin. However, not everyone was deterred. For example, people like the Ancestral Awakening Immortal Bone and Divine Wushuang, who were more ambitious than the sky, did not want to fall behind others. They also believed that they would not be inferior to others. Since Lu Ming could succeed, they could too. Chapter 51:20. The atavistic immortal bone and divine peerless had coincidentally chosen to break through on the same day. This attracted the attention of the entire world. Everyone was paying attention, wanting to see if the two of them would succeed. In the battle on the heaven-trampling platform, the two of them were experts second only to Lu Ming. It could even be said that they were not necessarily weaker than Lu Ming. They were just restrained. For example, although Divine Peerless had lost to Lu Ming, he had defeated the atavistic immortal bone. However, if the atavistic immortal bone faced Lu Ming would most likely not be his opponent. The two of them had failed partly due to luck. Therefore, everyone wanted to see if the two of them could succeed. On this day, the place where the two of them broke through was filled with a sea of people. The final result shocked the entire universe. The atavistic immortal bone had failed, and his soul had dissipated. He had completely died, but his body had not dissipated. The golden immortal bone had been preserved. This shocked everyone. If other people failed in their breakthroughs, nothing would be left. Their bodies and souls would be destroyed, and they would completely dissipate. However, the atavistic immortal bone's body had been perfectly preserved. This made people wonder if it really was the skeleton of an immortal. Moreover, the people of the Great Bone Cosmos solemnly collected the atavistic immortal bone's body. Some people said that the people of the Great Bone Cosmos would bring the immortal bone back and place it in a secret place of the cosmos to be nurtured. After countless years, the immortal bone might even give birth to a new intelligence, giving birth to a new peerless genius. This shocked many people of the cosmos. It turned out that the atavistic immortal bone could be used repeatedly. As long as it was not destroyed, it could repeatedly give birth to a peerless genius. The failure of the atavistic immortal bone made even more people turn their attention to Divine Peerless. Before long, news spread that Divine Peerless had succeeded, and he had broken through to reciprocity alive. He was the first genius to succeed after Lu Ming. However, after Divine Peerless succeeded, his cultivation was only at the peak of early reciprocity. He did not reach mid-reciprocity like Lu Ming. As for the grade of Divine Peerless origin root, outsiders did not know. They were all guessing whether it was mid-grade or high-grade. Divine Peerless success gave the others confidence. Afterwards, people tried to break through to reciprocity one after another. However, most of them failed, and no one was able to succeed. Not even those who had broken through 5 times could succeed. Lu Ming did not pay attention to any of this. He went into seclusion after returning to the Azure Sacred Realm. He sorted out the storage rings and pouches he had obtained this time. His harvest was shocking. In addition to the number of origins he had killed previously, he now had a total of over 250. These were all creatures from the Forbidden Grounds. Each and every one of them had an source-grade weapon, and some of them even had more than one. In total, there were more than 400 source-grade divine weapons, and there was no lack of top-tier source-grade divine weapons. In addition, there were 8 complete sets of origin-grade joint attack formation carriers. These were all astonishing gains. If he brought these source-grade divine weapons back to the Heaven Destroyer, he would be able to arm the Heaven Destroyer to the teeth. Of course, this was only a part of the harvest. There were also precious materials, divine pills, source-level divine herbs, immortal crystals and immortal stones. What Lu Ming valued the most were still the soul-grade divine herbs and immortal crystals. These 2 things both contained origin imprints. Origin realm existences could directly absorb and refine them to increase their cultivation. Lu Ming's seclusion this time was mainly to refine the soul-grade divine herbs and immortal crystals to increase his cultivation. Although his progress was fast enough, reaching mid-reciprocity as soon as he broke through, he still felt that it was not enough. He needed to rise even faster. The universe was in chaos. Once the origin tribulation was over, the primitive universe would usher in a shocking storm. He was filled with a sense of crisis and urgency. He was still too weak. He did not have the time to cultivate slowly. He needed to rise quickly. Lu Ming waved his hand and dozens of immortal crystals exploded. Strands of special airflow appeared from the shattered crystals. They were like runes, but also like the laws of order. These were origin imprints. Lu Ming opened his mouth and inhaled. These origin imprints were all sucked into Lu Ming's mouth. Then he closed his eyes and began to comprehend. Lu Ming's body was shrouded in a layer of mist. The origin imprints in the immortal crystals and soul-grade divine herbs were not energy. They could not be absorbed and refined like energy. They needed to be comprehended. Yes, they needed to be comprehended. Only after comprehending could they be converted into origin energy and strengthen one's own origin energy. Therefore, everyone's conversion rate for immortal crystals and soul-grade divine herbs was different. For example, if an immortal crystal's origin imprint was divided into 10 parts, not everyone could absorb and refine all of it. Ordinary people could only absorb and refine 20%. That was because one needed to comprehend these origin imprints. The more one comprehended, the more one would be able to absorb. Comprehending 20% meant that one could only absorb 20%. Comprehending 30% meant that one could only absorb 30%. The rest would dissipate into the world. The higher one's talent, the higher one's comprehension ability, and the higher the conversion rate. Lu Ming's current comprehension ability was too terrifying. These origin imprints circulated in his body. After a period of time, they were converted into forbidden origin energy. Lu Ming's forbidden origin energy was getting stronger and stronger. Lu Ming estimated that the conversion rate had reached 80%. If this news were to spread, it would definitely scare countless creatures to death. One should know that the conversion rate for ordinary origin energy was only 20%. If one could reach 30%, one would be considered to be talented. If one could reach 40%, one would be a genius. If one could reach 50%, one would be a peerless monster. However, Lu Ming had reached 80%. This was already incredible. However, Lu Ming still sighed. He was a little dissatisfied because he had wasted 20%. He felt the pinch. Was it easy for him to obtain these resources? His heart was bleeding from the waste of 20%. If others knew what he was thinking, they would probably beat him to death. How could it be so infuriating? After a period of time, Lu Ming refined dozens of immortal crystals. Lu Ming felt that his cultivation level had improved a little. He had taken a small step forward on the foundation of the mid-stage of the source realm. He had only just reached mid-reciprocity. He was still very far away from late reciprocity. However, with his cultivation speed, Lu Ming believed that he would reach late reciprocity very soon. With a wave of his hand, several dozen more immortal crystals flew out before exploding. Lu Ming absorbed the origin imprints inside. Just like that, Lu Ming entered deep seclusion. He constantly absorbed and refined the immortal crystals and soul-grade divine herbs. Time passed quickly, and 10 years passed. In the past 10 years, Lu Ming had refined all the immortal crystals and source-level divine herbs on him. Only then did he raise his cultivation level to the peak of the mid-reciprocity stage. He did not reach the late reciprocity stage as he had expected. There were not enough resources. The resources I've consumed are just too terrifying. Is this the price to pay for a high-level origin root? Lu Ming had a bitter expression on his face. Chapter 51-21. He killed more than 250 of the Forbidden Land's 8 clans' origin sources, plundering their treasures, obtaining immortal crystals and origin-level divine medicines. It couldn't be said to be a small amount, extremely shocking. It was enough for ordinary origin sources to use for a long time. However, he had only used 10 years, and he had only gone from mid-reciprocity to the peak of mid-reciprocity. He hadn't even advanced a single level. It could only be said that the resources he consumed for cultivation were too terrifying. The higher the grade of the origin root, the more terrifying the resources consumed for cultivation. Lu Ming's origin root was a high-grade origin root. The resources he consumed were at least 100 times more than those of low-grade origin roots. This was also because his conversion rate had reached 80%. Otherwise, even if he consumed all the immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs, he wouldn't be able to reach peak mid-origin. Looks like I have to go out and search for resources. Otherwise, my cultivation speed will be even slower if I cultivate step by step. Lu Ming muttered. It wasn't impossible for origin realm existences to advance without immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs. For example, through the universe bridge, one's consciousness could enter the universe ocean and comprehend the origin in the universe ocean. Most people at the peak of the Almighty Master stage did this. However, cultivating like this was too slow. It required a very long time to accumulate. At the same time, Origin Realm existences could directly refine the Origin Spirit medicinal liquid to increase their cultivation. The Origin Spirit medicinal liquid could be directly absorbed without wasting a single drop. However, the Origin Spirit medicinal liquid was too rare. A peak source-grade divine herb could only be refined into a single drop per month. It wasn't enough for Lu Ming at all. Lu Ming, you've come out of seclusion. I have something I need your help with. Not long after Lu Ming came out of seclusion, he encountered a few old men. Lu Ming knew them. They were all Origin Realm existences in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Lu Ming had a good impression of these people. Back when the Tsongqing Divine Realm was besieged by the 8 clans of the Forbidden Land, some of them advocated for Lu Ming to be handed over, while some of them were adamant about not letting him go. These few elders were among them. Seniors, please speak, Lu Ming said with a smile. Recently we've been attacking a ruin. This ruin definitely contains many treasures, but there are people from other universes competing for it. We'd like to ask for your help in attacking this ruin. A red-haired old man explained. Attacking the ruins? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. This remnant isn't particularly large. It shouldn't be too dangerous. Thinking that Lu Ming was hesitating, the red-haired elder explained. All right, let's go together, Lu Ming said. It just so happened that he was lacking resources. These ruins were all left behind by the powerful forces of the Great Desolate Continent. There might be a large amount of resources inside. Even if no one invited him, Lu Ming planned to walk around. Seeing Lu Ming agree, the old men were overjoyed. Lu Ming's current cultivation was at mid-reciprocity. He could be described as the only one in the universe. And his battle prowess was extremely great. In a sense, Lu Ming could be called the #1 expert in the universe. With his help, they wouldn't have to fear the other universes, and their chances of success would be greatly increased. Immediately, they set off towards the ruins. A few days later, they arrived at a fragment of a continent. Now the continent fragments of the Great Desolate Universe were all gathering together. Some of the closer ones had already gathered together to form a larger continent. However, the vast universe was too vast. The distance between many continent fragments was boundless. It would take a long time for them to gather together. This fragment of a continent would slowly drift in a certain direction, and one day, it would stick together with the other fragments of a continent. In the center of the continent fragment, there was a large mountain range that stretched as far as the eye could see. On the way, the old men had already explained the situation of the ruins to Lu Ming in detail. This ruin came from a huge immortal dynasty of the human race during the Great Desolate Continent. It was called the Qingyang Immortal Dynasty. Those with the name Immortal were all incredible. This immortal dynasty was definitely overseen by an immortal. In fact, the Qingyang Immortal Dynasty was extremely powerful during the Great Desolate Continent. It could be ranked in the top 10 among all the orthodoxies of the human race. This was definitely incredible. For example, an orthodoxy like the Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven, which occupied a grotto heaven, couldn't even be ranked in the top 10 among the major forces of the human race. Although there were human kings in the Great Desolate Continent who ruled the world, they didn't unite the human race. However, the human king did not create a unified force of the human race. Instead, he divided it into many different forces and different orthodoxies. Human king was an honorific title. It was a title given to those who had made great contributions to the human race. They were respected by the majority of the human race. They weren't called human kings only if they founded an immortal dynasty of the human race. In fact, among the 3 human kings, only human king Xianyuan founded an orthodoxy. The other 2, human king Xingxi and ancient queen Xingxi, didn't found any orthodoxies. They were lone wolves. Of course, human kings were respected by the world. If there was a big matter, they would definitely gather heroes with a single command. At that time, the human race was divided into many orthodoxies of different sizes. Heroes ruled over their own areas. The immortal dynasty and immortal sects ruled over their own areas. They were extremely brilliant. For the Qingyang immortal dynasty to be ranked in the top 10 of the orthodoxies of the human race, it was unknown how strong it was. Legend had it that there was a king overseeing it. Of course, this king didn't mean the king of human kings. The ruins left behind by the Qingyang immortal dynasty were absolutely shocking. Of course, the ruins in front of them weren't the immortal capital of the Qingyang immortal dynasty, but the residence of a general of the Qingyang immortal dynasty. If it was really the immortal capital of the Qingyang immortal dynasty, heroes would have gathered long ago. It wouldn't be up to the Tsangqing immortal realm to fight for it. However, if it was really the immortal capital of the Qingyang immortal dynasty, the danger level would rise sharply. With their current strength, they wouldn't dare to attack it. The ruins in front of them were just the residence of a general of the Qingyang immortal dynasty. The danger level was much lower. This was also the reason why the Tsangqing immortal realm dared to attack it now. The world has changed with the passage of time. The residence of the general of the Qingyang immortal dynasty is buried in this mountain range. It's surrounded by restrictions. Every step is filled with killing intent. In addition, the Qingyang immortal dynasty is good at refining stone puppets to fight for them. There are many stone puppets in this ruin. When we were excavating, we were attacked. Although countless years have passed, they still have a strong combat strength. They can't be underestimated. The few old men continued to introduce. Lu Ming nodded and memorized each and every one of them. Let's go over there. Our people are over there. The few old men led the way. Soon Lu Ming saw a large group of people. There were more than 200 of them, and they were all Origin Realm experts. Such ruins were very dangerous. Those below the Origin Realm didn't dare to participate at all. They would die if they moved. Seeing Lu Ming's arrival, the people of the Tsangqing immortal realm were overjoyed. They were much more confident. Boom. Suddenly, there was a violent explosion in the depths of the mountain range. A dozen figures rushed out quickly. Chapter 51-22. More than a dozen figures charged out from the depths of the mountain range. They were all experts of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Watch out. There are stone puppets coming out. Work together to destroy them. Among the dozen or so people, one of them shouted, "Attack!" The 200 people outside circulated their origin energy, and their source-grade weapons buzzed as they prepared for battle. Boom. Boom. In the next moment, Lu Ming felt the ground rumble. Some giants were charging over from behind the dozen people. At a closer look, they weren't giants at all. They were clearly stone golems. Each of them was over a dozen meters tall, and wielded a stone weapon. Every step they took caused the ground to rumble as they pursued the dozen people. Lu Ming knew that these were stone puppets. There were a total of 13 of them. Very soon, the two sides drew close. Attack! An old man from the Ashen Azure Divine Realm yelled. Over 200 Origin Realm experts attacked at the same time, sending out dazzling beams of light that bombarded the 13 stone puppets. Boom, 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 boom. The 13 stone puppets were blown away and smashed into the ground. But very soon, the 13 stone puppets stood back up as if nothing had happened. At a closer look, only a few shallow marks could be seen on the stone puppets' bodies. What a tough body! An attack from a reciprocity expert has only left behind a shallow mark, Jian Chen sighed. Lu Ming was rather surprised. Without a doubt, these stone puppets were left behind from the previous epoch. It was already rare for them to be able to survive without rotting, but they still had such a strong defense. It was truly shocking. However, with this obstruction, the dozen or so people managed to escape and regroup with the others. Attack again. Whoosh. Whoosh. This time, everyone directly sent out their source-grade weapons. Several hundred source-grade weapons struck the 13 stone puppets, causing clanging sounds and sparks to fly. Stone fragments constantly flew out from the 13 stone puppets. Some of the source-grade weapons were even peak source-grade weapons. They were even more powerful and could directly smash large pieces of stone. In the end, the 13 stone puppets were destroyed under the combined attacks of over 200 reciprocity experts. They were reduced to pieces. There's a region of stone puppets inside. They've all been lured out and destroyed. We can explore that region now. One of the dozen people who had just run out said, "Let's go." We'll leave some people behind to guard the place. We'll go in and take a look. Immediately, about 100 people headed into the mountain range. Lu Ming followed. On the way, Lu Ming activated the Fey Monarch Tharch rune. Instantly, his surroundings changed in his eyes. Above the mountain range, dense runes appeared, forming a powerful restriction. However, many of the restrictions outside had already been broken. Clearly, it was broken by someone from the Azure Divine Realm. However, in the depths of the mountain range, there were dense runes that formed even more complete restrictions. Soon they arrived at an area. The restrictions in this area were also destroyed, and they saw a large number of ancient buildings. Those buildings were all dilapidated and decayed. From the looks of it, they had experienced a great battle back then. They walked in and began to investigate. Then they saw some withered bones. With a light touch, they were weathered away and turned into powder. The creatures who died here weren't very strong. They must have been implicated when the universe collapsed. At the end of the Eldritch era, there were wars everywhere in the universe. The experts were all conscripted to participate in the war. Those who remained were not very strong. Unfortunately, when the universe collapsed, those who were not strong enough could not survive at all. Several elders sighed. These old men had lived for a very long time. Their ancestors had lived since the era of the Great Desolate Continent. Their ancestors had once told them about their experiences back in the Great Desolate Continent. That was an era of despair. The flames of war raged. The strong had gone to war, while the weak stayed behind. Unfortunately, in the end the Eldritch era was destroyed and the heart of the universe exploded. Destructive power swept across the entire universe. Under such destructive power, the weak could not survive at all. How desperate that was. Only an extremely small number of living beings were able to survive. They investigated and found some broken source-level divine weapons. To be honest, the Firmament Divine Realm experts were not interested in these broken source-level divine weapons, but Lu Ming would not let them go. He quietly collected a lot of them. Qiuqiu's appetite was too big. These were food for Qiuqiu. Thinking of this, Lu Ming could not help but look at his wrist. After so many years, Qiuqiu still did not move. It turned into a bracelet, and wore it on Lu Ming's wrist. Lu Ming was really worried. Back then, Qiuqiu swallowed the Human King's broken sword too forcefully. What was the Human King's broken sword? That was the sword of the Human King Xianyuan, a genuine immortal weapon. No matter how talented Qiuqiu was, it could not eat too much. Lu Ming was really worried that something would happen to Qiuqiu. But now Lu Ming had no better idea. He could only wait. He hoped that Qiuqiu could make it. Lu Ming had a feeling that if Qiuqiu could not make it, it would definitely be incredible. This is only the periphery of the ruins. If it were the center of the ruins, there would definitely be treasures left behind. After all, this is the residence of a general. Even if the general of the Qingyang Immortal Dynasty is not an immortal, he is definitely an incredible existence who has crossed multiple immortal tribulations. Unfortunately, there are too many restrictions here. It's easier said than done to break them. Many people sighed. Perhaps, I have a way to break these restrictions. At this moment Lu Ming spoke. You have a way? Many people looked at Lu Ming. Yes, I can see the weaknesses of these restrictions, but I still need the seniors to attack these weaknesses to break these restrictions. Lu Ming said. The people of the Azure Divine Realm were shocked that Lu Ming could see the weaknesses of the restrictions. What kind of talent was that? However, they did not ask too much. They knew very well that a genius like Lu Ming must have a lot of secrets. If he did not say it himself, they would not ask. Of course. The people of the Azure Divine Realm nodded. Then Lu Ming left the place and headed towards the depths of the ruins. Lu Ming activated the Demonic Monarch Emperor rune. His eyes lit up and the restrictions around him were revealed in his eyes. 30 meters to the right, 136 meters to the left, attack the void 858 meters in front. Lu Ming kept pointing out the weaknesses of the restrictions. The experts of the Azure Divine Realm attacked, sending out dazzling rays of light that bombarded the places pointed out by Lu Ming. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions occurred in these places. Then the restrictions were broken one by one, and the runes were dissipating. It's broken. The restrictions are broken. There was no lack of experts who were proficient in array formations. At this moment, they shouted in surprise. The others were also ecstatic. Especially the few old men who looked for Lu Ming previously. This time, it was the right choice to ask Lu Ming to come with them. Chapter 51-23. Lu Ming pointed out the weaknesses of the restrictions with his demonic monarch runes, and the experts of the Tsongqing divine realm attacked those weaknesses, easily breaking the restrictions. Layers of restrictions were broken as they continued to go deeper into the ruins. Large pieces of dilapidated buildings appeared in front of them. Bang! 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 Suddenly, the ground rumbled as burly figures appeared and pounced on Lu Ming and the others. It was the stone puppets. There were at least 50 of them. Let's retreat and meet up with the others to deal with these stone puppets. An old man shouted. They didn't have enough manpower, and would be at a great disadvantage against 50 to 60 stone puppets. They had to meet up with the people outside and kill the stone puppets together. They quickly retreated and spread the news. Soon they retreated and the stone puppets chased after them. The hundreds of experts outside were ready and launched a fierce attack when they saw the stone puppets. Lu Ming and the others also stopped attacking. However, the 50 to 60 stone puppets had amazing combat power. They were able to close the distance and break the formation of the Tsongqing divine realm. Bam! A stone puppet held a stone knife and sent a Tsongqing divine realm expert flying with a strike, causing him to cough up blood. Set up the combined attack array. Someone shouted. Immediately, many people began to set up the combined attack array. However, there weren't many people left in the Tsongqing divine realm from the primeval age, so there weren't many combined attack arrays left. There were only 3 combined attack arrays, and there were very few people. 2 of them were 3-man combined attack arrays, and 1 was 5-man combined attack array. The combined attack array was powerful and immediately sent many stone puppets flying. The others gathered in groups of 3 to 5, and barely managed to stabilize the situation. Buzz! Lu Ming held the God of Combat spear and charged forward, striking a stone puppet with his spear. Lu Ming's current combat power was so powerful that he immediately sent the stone puppet flying. Dense cracks appeared on its body. Bam! The stone puppet smashed into the ground and shattered like porcelain. Buzz buzz buzz. Lu Ming kept waving the war god spear and attacking the stone puppets. Every time he struck, a stone puppet would be destroyed. SSS. The others sucked in a cold breath. Lu Ming's battle prowess was too terrifying. They knew how tough these stone puppets were. They needed to continuously attack with source-grade weapons before they could break through. But in Lu Ming's hands, they were so weak that one of them exploded with a single move. It was as if they were porcelain. In the end, all 50 to 60 stone puppets were defeated. More than half of the stone puppets were defeated by Lu Ming alone, shocking the experts of the Azure Divine Territory. Soon after, they repeated the same trick and entered the depths of the mountain range. Lu Ming saw through the weakness of the restrictions while the others attacked and broke through the restrictions. When there were stone puppets, they would lure them outside, and everyone would attack together to destroy them. Just like that, Lu Ming and the others broke through the restrictions in this direction. Large amounts of ancient ruins were exposed. Bang! Bang bang! Lu Ming and the others once again defeated a group of stone puppets. Good, the stone puppets in this area have basically been cleaned up. Next, we can explore this area. An old man said with a smile on his face. This time, little brother Lu Ming has contributed the most. I suggest that if there is any harvest later, half of it will be given to little brother Lu Ming. What do you all think? Another old man suggested. I have no objection. I think so too. Everyone nodded. Even if some of them were not satisfied, they could not bring it up. This time, it was true that Lu Ming had made the greatest contribution. Moreover, it was not just half of it. Lu Ming had seen through the weaknesses of the restrictions. Without Lu Ming, they did not know how long it would have taken them to break through. Needless to say, more than half of the stone puppets were defeated by Lu Ming. It could be said that Lu Ming's contribution alone was greater than the others combined. It was reasonable to share half of the harvest with Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not refuse. Now was not the time to be pretentious. He urgently needed a large amount of resources to improve his cultivation. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly raised his head and looked in a certain direction. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, rainbow lights flickered in that direction as a large number of figures came over. In the next moment, hundreds of figures appeared in the sky. It's the people of Emoshang Great Cosmos. The faces of the people of Ashen Azure Divine Territory changed drastically. The Ashen Azure Divine Territory was not the only one that had taken a fancy to this ruin. There were also two other forces that were from the Outerverse. The three forces had fought over this place previously, and had engaged in a great battle. In the end, they had discussed and decided to divide this place equally. Each of them had chosen a direction, and would rely on their own abilities. Whoever could break through the restrictions and obtain the treasures would have it. Emoshang Great Cosmos was one of the forces. This was a great cosmos from the underworld. It was not ranked high in the underworld, but it was a complete great cosmos after all. There were still many experts there. These hundreds of people were all early-stage Origin Realm existences. This is the territory of my Ashen Azure Divine Territory. What are you doing here? Asked an old man of Ashen Azure Divine Territory. Haha, this is clearly an ownerless land. When did it become your territory? Now this direction belongs to us. You can leave. In Emoshang Great Cosmos, a purple-haired youth laughed. What? You want this place? The three of us have discussed this before. Each of us will choose a direction and rely on our own abilities. Are you trying to break your promise? The people of Ashen Azure Divine Territory were furious. What discussion? I wasn't around when you guys were discussing this. Now that I'm here, I don't agree with that agreement. Now I want this area. Get lost. The purple-haired youth had his hands behind his back with a look of contempt. He had received news that the people of Ashen Azure Divine Territory seemed to have broken through the restrictions here. He was overjoyed when he heard that and immediately rushed over with his men. He was determined to get this area. Damn it! This guy must know that we have broken through the restrictions here and wants to take it away. Damn it! He wants to reap without sowing? No way. There are many more experts in Emoshang Great Cosmos than before. No wonder he's so arrogant. The people of Ashen Azure Divine Territory discussed. They were furious, but they were also fearful. In the past, the number of people in Emoshang Great Cosmos was far less than now. They could handle it. However, the number of people in Emoshang Great Cosmos had doubled now. Their strength was far above theirs. I'm advising you nicely. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't think that you can resist us. The human race is no longer the human race of the prehistoric continent. You have to recognize yourselves. You are just the descendants of some people struggling at death's door. The purple-haired youth sneered with a mocking expression. What did you say? Bastard! How dare you insult us? Many people were furious. Why? Do you want to fight? The purple-haired youth sneered and waved his hand. Immediately, hundreds of experts of Emoshang Great Cosmos unleashed their auras. The void shook as a terrifying aura pressed down on the people of Ashen Azure Divine Territory. Chapter 51-24. There were about 400 people in the Emoshang Great Cosmos, which was double the number of people in the Ashen Green Sacred Realm. The combined aura of these 400 people was too frightening, making the people in the Ashen Green Sacred Realm grimace. Furthermore, the Emoshang Great Cosmos was a complete great cosmos with a complete orthodoxy that had been passed down for countless years. The Ashen Green Sacred Realm couldn't compare to it at all. The Emoshang Great Cosmos definitely didn't lack all sorts of powerful combined array formations. However, the Ashen Green Sacred Realm only had 3 combined array formations. If they really fought, they definitely wouldn't be a match. Scram! At that moment, a cold rebuke was heard. It sounded very abrupt. The people in the Ashen Green Sacred Realm couldn't help but turn to look at someone. Then their eyes lit up. The person who had spoken was naturally Lu Ming. Lu Ming was very unhappy. In his opinion, half of the treasures in this region belonged to him. Now the people of the Emoshang Great Cosmos actually wanted to snatch the treasures from him without risking anything. Furthermore, the other party's attitude made him extremely unhappy. Hence, he rebuked them directly. When they thought about Lu Ming's combat strength, the people in the Ashen Green Sacred Realm couldn't help but feel relieved. They had nearly forgotten about Lu Ming. That's right, with Lu Ming around, why would they be afraid of the Mo Shang Great Cosmos? The people of the Mo Shang Great Cosmos also looked at Lu Ming, especially the purple-haired youth. His eyes flashed coldly as he said, "Kid, who are you talking to?" "Nonsense, your comprehension ability is so poor. Are you a pig? I told you to scram." Lu Ming continued to reprimand them. "Ha ha ha. Kid, do you know that you have a death wish? Now I'll give you a chance. Kneel down, kowtow, admit your mistake, and break one of your arms. Then I can pretend I didn't hear what you just said." Scram. Before the purple-haired youth could finish speaking, Lu Ming also rebuked him. Based on his attitude, it seemed like he was reprimanding a wild dog. The purple-haired youth exploded. His anger was like a volcano as he went berserk all of a sudden. "Kid, you have a death wish. Kill him for me." The purple-haired youth roared. Shwa. A man stepped out from the Mo Shang Great Cosmos. His aura was tyrannical as he extended a hand and grabbed Lu Ming. There was no doubt that this burly man was an expert who had comprehended a Genesis technique. This giant hand was the embodiment of his Genesis technique, or he would not have been so careless as to directly attack. After all, Lu Ming's aura was at the origin realm. Swoosh. With a flick of Lu Ming's finger, a ray of spear gleam shot out and pierced through the man's palm, leaving a bloody hole. Ah! The middle-aged man swoosh swoosh. What? The Mo Shang Great Cosmos was swoosh swoosh master swooshes swoosh. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh sect. Swoosh. Swoosh great swoosh. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh. 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 They realized that the young man before them was a monstrous genius. They li zhou 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 yu zhou yuan words you swoosh. Swoosh level 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 level. The purple-haired youth roared. His figure flickered as a five-man formation was set up. It turned into a giant black wolf that pounced at Lu Ming. The giant wolf was as large as a mountain. When its claws reached out, space collapsed. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. He took out the battle god spear and swept it out, colliding with the giant wolf's claws. With a bang, the giant wolf's claws exploded, but the spear didn't stop there. It continued to smash the giant wolf into pieces. The five people in the formation screamed as they were sent flying like cannonballs. They smashed into the ground and coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. Their faces were pale and their auras withered. They had suffered heavy injuries, and Lu Ming had shown them mercy. Otherwise, the five of them wouldn't have survived. However, the Mo Shang Great Cosmos people were dumbfounded. They were all at the early origin stage, but he could destroy a five-man formation in one move. What kind of battle prowess was that? No, it wasn't early origin stage but mid-origin stage. Just now Lu Ming's aura had flashed by. He was clearly at the mid-origin stage. However, people at the mid-origin stage couldn't break the seal and come out. How could Lu Ming wander around? No. They immediately thought of who Lu Ming was. Some time ago, the 8 races of the Forbidden Land had surrounded and killed Lu Ming. In the end, Lu Ming had broken through at the critical moment and reached the mid-origin stage. He had killed more than 100 experts from the 8 races of the Forbidden Land. This matter had already spread throughout the universe. Right now, there was only one person in the primitive universe who had reached the mid-origin stage. That was Lu Ming. Thinking of this, their faces turned pale. This was a ruthless person. He had suppressed everyone on the heaven-trampling platform, defeated sacred Wushuang, and occupied the highest platform. When he had broken through to the origin stage, he had reached the mid-origin stage. The 8 races of the Forbidden Land had sent out many experts, but they had suffered heavy casualties. This fiend was actually here. The purple-haired young man only felt his legs and stomach tremble, and his lips trembled. Although he could be considered a genius, the difference between him and Lu Ming was huge. He had berated Lu Ming like that, so he was really afraid that Lu Ming would stab him to death. He squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "It was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding. Which bastard tricked me to come here? I won't forgive him. Now goodbye." The purple-haired young man clasped his fist and turned around to leave. You think you can come and go as you please? Do you think I'm easy to talk to? Lu Ming's indifferent voice rang out. The purple-haired young man's body stiffened. He turned around and looked at Lu Ming again. He said, Lu Ming, what do you want? It's simple. I was really frightened by such a large group of people rushing over. Even my soul cracked and my origin foundation became unstable. Lu Ming said. Bullshit. What a load of bullshit. The purple-haired young man roared in his mind. You're frightened? You're just lying through your teeth. You're clearly pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, if you're frightened with your battle prowess. We're the ones who should be frightened. Of course, he only thought that. He did not dare to say it out loud. What kind of compensation do you want? The purple-haired young man's face was ugly, as if he had eaten a dead rat. This time, he had brought people to occupy this place and reap the benefits, but now he was actually being asked for compensation. It's simple. I don't want much. Just 100,000 immortal crystals, and 300 source-level divine herbs. Lu Ming said. The purple-haired young man almost jumped up as if he had been slashed. He roared. What? 100,000 immortal crystals and 300 source-level divine herbs? Why don't you just rob me? I'm robbing you. Lu Ming replied indifferently, which almost made the purple-haired young man spit blood. No, we don't have that many immortal crystals and source-level divine herbs. The purple-haired young man roared. You have over 400 reciprocity experts here. Do you think I'll believe that you don't have 100,000 immortal crystals and source-level divine herbs? Lu Ming said with an unfriendly gaze. Chapter 51:25. The purple-haired youth roared inside. Even if we have so many immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs, we can't give them all to you. No, I don't have any. You know that cultivating in the origin realm consumes a lot of resources. We don't have enough immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs. How can we have so many immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs? The purple-haired youth shook his head. It's fine if you don't compensate me for my losses. Then let's fight. However, I just broke through not long ago, so I can't control my strength well. Also, this spear is very tough. Don't blame me if I accidentally kill someone. Lu Ming's face turned cold. The war god spear in his hand buzzed as if it would fly out and stab someone at any time. The people of Moshang Great Cosmos couldn't help but retreat in fear. They felt chills all over. Sullen, incomparably sullen. The purple-haired youth roared inside. If it weren't for the fact that it was the origin tribulation, and those above mid-origin realm couldn't enter, he really wanted to call in the experts of his sect to suppress Lu Ming. Unfortunately, no one could stop Lu Ming in the current situation. You won't give? Then attack. Lu Ming snorted coldly. The war god spear expanded, turning into a towering spear that seemed to pierce the sky. At this moment, Lu Ming didn't hold back at all. The aura of a mid-origin realm fully erupted. The pressure of a high-grade source root made the people of Moshang Great Cosmos pale. Facing Lu Ming, they felt like they were facing a terrifying beast. They were like little chicks that couldn't resist at all. This person is too terrifying. Will he be able to enter the origin ranking in the future? This thought flashed through many people's minds. We'll give. In the end, the purple-haired youth compromised. This was because from the various signs, Lu Ming was definitely a ruthless person. He didn't fear sacred Wushuang. He even dared to kill the 8 races of the Forbidden Lands. This kind of person wouldn't fear Moshang Great Cosmos at all. Moreover, the Yin world and the Yang world were enemies. The 400 people of Moshang Great Cosmos pooled their resources, and finally gathered 100,000 immortal crystals, and 300 source-grade divine herbs. They handed them over to Lu Ming, and left as if they were fleeing. Just as the purple-haired young man had said, immortal crystals and origin-level pills were consumables. Origin realm cultivators did not have a lot of them. If they did, they would refine them. To be able to gather so many people from over 400 people was already pretty good. The people of Tsongqing Divine Realm were dumbfounded. That works too. That was 100,000 immortal crystals, which was equivalent to 300 stalks of soul-grade divine herbs. It was definitely a huge sum of money, and he had gotten it just like that. What reciprocity cultivators lacked the most were resources that contained origin imprints. Ordinary origins could only refine 20% of the origin mark. 80% would be wasted, so the demand for these resources was even greater. But even if they racked their brains to get resources, it was still not enough. Although the universe was now recovering, and there were many more resources available, the competition was still fierce. Countless powerhouses from the outerverse were pouring in, and the competition was too fierce. It was even more difficult to obtain resources than before. As for Lu Ming, he was able to obtain so many resources so easily. Many people were envious to death. However, they were only envious. They would never dare to learn from Lu Ming. Firstly, they did not have Lu Ming's courage, and secondly, they did not have Lu Ming's strength. Lu Ming put away the immortal crystals and origin-level pills with a satisfied smile. These resources should be enough for him to break through to late-stage reciprocity. Of course, the ruins here had not been explored yet. If there were treasures inside, they could not miss it. Senior, the people from Emoshang Great Cosmos have left. Let's continue exploring the ruins. Lu Ming said. The people of Tsangqing Divine Realm seemed to have woken up from a dream, and they walked into the ruins with Lu Ming. There was a large area of dilapidated buildings in the ruins. It could be seen that there had been a vast mansion in the past, but it was now completely ruined. Occasionally, some remains could be seen in the dilapidated buildings. There's an intact storage pouch. Someone cried out in pleasant surprise. Sure enough, someone found a storage pouch in one of the remains. This storage pouch was definitely not simple. It was dark gold in color, and contained an immortal substance. Otherwise, it would not have been able to be preserved from the previous epoch until now. Ordinary storage pouches, storage rings, storage bracelets, and so on would decay and collapse after a long time. The items inside would fall into the chaotic dark void, never to see the light of day again. However, if a storage pouch was made of an immortal substance, it could be preserved for a long time. It could even be preserved from the previous epoch until now. In fact, most origin-level divine weapons also contained immortal substances. Therefore, they could be preserved for a long time without decaying. Open it and take a look. Someone urged. That person opened it and found a lot of immortal crystals, divine pills, and so on. Of course, it was impossible for there to be any divine pills. Even if a divine pill was placed in a storage pouch, its essence would be lost. It was impossible for it to be preserved until now. Continue searching. There are probably other storage pouches that have been preserved. An old man said. Everyone spread out to search. As expected, they did find a lot of things. Both damaged and intact source-grade divine weapons were found, and all kinds of refining materials were piled up like mountains. What a strong medicinal fragrance. When they went deep into the ruins, everyone smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. Then, they found a medicinal field in the depths of the mansion. This should be the place where the general of the Qingyang Celestial Dynasty planted the divine pills. This medicinal field occupied a large area. At a glance, there were lush divine pills everywhere. The godly herbs emitted a mystical glow, as if the whole place had turned into an immortal realm. There are so many divine pills. Most of them are origin-level divine pills. This is amazing. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming's breathing became a little heavy. The main thing was that there were too many origin-level divine pills. With a rough scan with his spirit sense, there were about 1,000 of them. These were origin-level divine pills. It was amazing that there were more than 1,000 of them. In the past, they obtained origin-level divine pills one by one. It was already amazing to have a few origin-level divine pills together, but there were more than 1,000 of them here. The quality of the soil in this medicinal field is amazing. Even when the universe is dead, it can still slowly absorb the energy of the universe. That's why there are so many origin-level divine pills here. An old man came to a conclusion after a careful inspection. The reason why there were so many origin-level divine pills here was completely related to the quality of the soil. This was a special kind of soil that was extremely suitable for planting divine pills. He even guessed that this soil could even be used to plant subimmortal herbs. Then we can't let go of this soil. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He planned to dig up some soil, and put it into the ancient desolate ring to plant divine pills. Immediately, everyone dug up all the origin-level divine pills here, including the roots. Of course, they didn't let go of the soil here. In the end, there were more than 1,100 origin-level divine pills. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles because according to the agreement, Lu Ming would get half of it. This time they had made a lot of money. Chapter 51-26. After that, they explored the ruins and plundered everything that needed to be plundered. Unfortunately, they didn't encounter any higher-grade treasures. For example, top-grade source-grade divine herbs, quasi-immortal herbs, or quasi-immortal weapons. They didn't encounter any treasures of that level. However, there were still a lot of other treasures, especially more than 1,000 stalks of source-grade divine herbs. Their value was astonishing. According to the agreement, Lu Ming took half of it. There were more than 500 stalks of source-grade divine herbs, tens of thousands of immortal crystals, and many damaged source-grade divine weapons. This time, it could be said that they returned with a fruitful harvest. Seniors, I will return to the Tsongqing immortal realm to cultivate. Lu Ming cupped his fists and bid farewell. Lu Ming, if there are any suitable ruins next time, you have to help again. An old man said. The others also looked at Lu Ming with hope. Lu Ming's combat strength was too important. Moreover, Lu Ming could see through the weaknesses of some restrictions. With his help, they could look for Lu Ming for many ruins that they couldn't explore. Even if they shared half of Lu Ming's harvest, they would still make a huge profit. Just like here, if it weren't for Lu Ming, they wouldn't have been able to break through the restrictions and obtain the treasures inside so easily. Not to mention breaking through. Even if the people from the Mo Shang Great Cosmos came, they would only be able to leave dejectedly. They wouldn't even have a chance. Of course, if there are any suitable ruins, feel free to look for me. Lu Ming said. His words were sincere. This time, they had only come out to explore a single ruin, but they had already gained so much. This was only the residence of a general of the Qingyang Immortal Dynasty, who knew how many treasures there were in the truly important ruins. For example, if the immortal capital of the Qingyang Immortal Dynasty hadn't been destroyed and was preserved, the treasures inside would definitely be amazing. Unfortunately, many of the ruins were occupied by people from the outerverse. Moreover, those important ruins were very dangerous. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, he couldn't enter at all. He would die if he moved. Therefore, Lu Ming was more concerned about finding suitable ruins than these people. Lu Ming entered seclusion after returning to the Ashen Divine Realm. He refined the immortal crystals and origin-level pills and began to break through, advancing towards late reciprocity. His cultivation base was constantly deepening and consolidating. In the blink of an eye, a few years had passed. However, Lu Ming's cultivation remained at mid-reciprocity. He had not broken through to late reciprocity. It seems that I've reached a bottleneck. Sure enough, I can't rely on resources to keep improving. Lu Ming muttered. The higher one's cultivation was, the more difficult it was to increase it. After reaching reciprocity, it was just too difficult to increase one's cultivation level. In fact, many origins would be trapped at a certain level, unable to break through for a long time. Not only did reciprocity require resources, but it also required comprehension. Once one's comprehension reached a certain level, they would naturally be able to break through. The reason why Lu Ming was able to break through and reach the mid-stage of origin was entirely because of the gift from the Cosmic Sea. Now he was stuck. Read books to receive cash. Follow VX Public Zhonghao. Read books to receive cash. Lu Ming understood that this was normal. If one could continue to improve without limit by relying on resources, then the descendants of the top experts would not need to cultivate. They could just rely on resources to become top experts. The descendants of the top experts, such as the descendants or disciples of immortals, would definitely not lack resources. But in reality, it was not that easy. The descendants of the top experts also needed to train, fight, and comprehend. Different people made different choices. Some people would fight and kill others, comprehend in the battle, and train in life and death. Some people would choose to enter seclusion for a long time, slowly accumulating over time. There were also people who would travel the world, experience the various states of life, train their minds, and find an opportunity to break through. Different people made different choices. Lu Ming came out of seclusion and stopped cultivating. He knew that it was impossible to break through by refining immortal crystals or origin-level pills when he encountered a bottleneck. If he cultivated in seclusion, even with his talent, it would take a long time. What he lacked the most now was time. Time did not wait for him. Lu Ming planned to go out and train himself. At the same time, he would explore some ruins and accumulate more resources. Once he broke through to the late stage of reciprocity, he would need a lot of resources. Except for the late stage of reciprocity, the resources needed to reach the peak of the late stage of reciprocity would be even more astonishing than before. After Lu Ming came out of seclusion, he contacted a few elders in the Azure Divine Realm. The elders were overjoyed and invited Lu Ming to explore the ruins together. In the following time, Lu Ming went in and out of various ruins. He explored 5 or 6 ruins one after another. Of course, they were not particularly dangerous ruins. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, there was almost no competition. Even if there were people from the Outerverse competing, they would not be a match for Lu Ming. The 8 clans of the Forbidden Area did not find trouble with Lu Ming again, as if they were afraid of him. However, Lu Ming knew that the 8 clans of the Forbidden Area were not really afraid of Lu Ming. They were just hibernating and waiting. Once the origin tribulation was over and more powerhouses awakened, they would definitely not let Lu Ming go. After exploring so many ruins, Lu Yin's harvest was also huge. Lu Ming had accumulated a large number of immortal crystals and source-grade divine herbs. Lu Ming even obtained 3 top-grade source-grade divine herbs. In total, he had 15 top-grade source-grade divine herbs. In addition, he had also obtained a pseudo-immortal armament. Unfortunately, it was damaged and had been destroyed in the previous era. However, this was a pseudo-immortal armament. Even if it was damaged, its value was still astonishing. It was not something a source-grade divine weapon could compare to. Lu Ming solemnly put it away. Just like that, another 30 years passed. At this time, there were still about 250 years until the end of the origin tribulation. It could be felt that the power of the origin tribulation was getting weaker and weaker. He believed that before long, existences above the middle origin realm would be able to awaken and move freely. However, Lu Ming had not broken through yet. His cultivation was still stuck at the limit of the middle origin realm. However, at this time, Lu Ming received a message from Mullins. Seeing this message, Lu Ming was stunned. Dandan was here. It was true. The message from Mullins was very clear. Dandan had come and was in the Tsongqing Divine Realm. Wasn't Dandan in the Eastern Universe? Why did he suddenly come to the Western Universe? How did he come here? Lu Ming hurriedly returned to the Tsongqing Divine Realm and saw Dandan, who was bragging with Mullins and Huangling. Dandan, how did you come here? Lu Ming asked directly as soon as he saw Dandan. Of course I came here through the ancient teleportation formation. Dandan said. Wasn't the ancient teleportation formation blown up? Lu Ming was puzzled. Yes, it was destroyed. But who is the person in front of you? I'm a rare genius in formations. After many years of research, I managed to fix the teleportation platform. So, I followed the ancient teleportation path here to see how you are doing. I didn't expect that. I was almost scared to death as soon as I came. Why are there so many experts here? I was almost cooked alive. It took me a lot of effort to find out about you and find my way here, Dandan said. Chapter 51-27. Dandan rambled, and there was indeed a look of fear in his eyes. He was really frightened, because the Western universe was too lively. Wherever he went, there were Origin Realm experts, which was completely different from the Eastern universe. Although early Origin Realm experts could move freely now, only the 3 races of the Forbidden Area and the Heavenly Human race had some Origin Realm experts in the Eastern universe. The other races didn't have many Origin Realm experts. But the Western universe was full of Origin Realm experts. He was almost scared to death, thinking that he had traveled through time and arrived at the primeval continent of the last era. You actually repaired the ancient teleportation formation. Lu Ming was pleasantly surprised. Didn't that mean he could go back at any time? Without the ancient teleportation formation, He could only go back through the void zone, which was not so easy and would take a long time. The 3 races of the forbidden area came from the void zone. Don't you know who I am? How can a mere teleportation formation stump me? It'll just take a little more time. Dandan said proudly, and his nostrils were almost raised to the sky. The Heaven Destroyer station is like this. The 3 races of the forbidden area didn't attack it, right? Lu Ming continued to ask. This was what he cared about the most. After all, his family and friends were all in the Heaven Destroyer station. It's fine. Although many early Origin Realm experts of the 3 races of the forbidden area and the heavenly human race have awakened in recent years and can move freely, they haven't attacked the Heaven Destroyer. After all, we also have early Origin Realm experts who have awakened. With the Origin Realm formation, we can protect ourselves. It won't be so easy for them to break through. Moreover, they are also afraid of the stronger experts of the Heaven Destroyer. Once they awaken, they will have to face the consequences. Dandan explained. Only then did Lu Ming feel relieved. Come to think of it, Dandan had set up a complete source-level array many years ago, and it was activated by the existence of the Origin Realm. The power of the source-level array would be very shocking. Lu Ming had already experienced this before. At the same time, the Heaven Destroyer contained mid, late, and peak reciprocity existences. If they were forced to awaken, their destructive power would be astonishing. Presumably, the 3 clans of the Forbidden Land were also apprehensive. However, this situation wouldn't last for long. Once the Origin Tribulation was over, Heaven Destroyer would definitely be in danger. Without a doubt, the 3 races of the Forbidden Grounds definitely possessed existences beyond reciprocity, experts who had undergone the immortal tribulation. Needless to say, there were such beings in the heavenly human race. When the time came, the Heaven Destroyer would definitely not be able to resist. As for the Heaven Destroyer, at its peak, it only had 49 origins. Now it had less than that. As for whether there were existences above the Origin Realm, Lu Ming was not very sure. However, there was no need to think too much about it. Even if there were, there wouldn't be many of them. Lu Ming guessed that Tang Feng and Fei Huang were most likely existences that surpassed Source. However, there were too few of them. They definitely wouldn't be able to stop the 3 clans of the Forbidden Lands. What worried Lu Ming the most was that there were most likely true immortals in the Forbidden Grounds. Otherwise, during the Primeval Age, the Orthodoxies wouldn't have been afraid, and it wouldn't have become a forbidden ground. Once the immortals came out, no one could stop them, and no one could stop them. Therefore, Lu Ming planned to transfer his family and friends to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, and even the entire Heaven Destroyer to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Read books and receive cash. Follow VX. Everyone read books and receive cash. There were many humans in the Heaven Destroyer, and even other races were native creatures of the Primeval Age. He believed that the Ashen Azure Divine Realm would not refuse. The Ashen Azure Divine Realm had powerful formations and seals, so it should be able to protect itself. Moreover, Lu Ming speculated that there were also immortals in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. It should be safe in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. In the past, it was very difficult to do this. Even if Lu Ming used the Chaos Ring, it was not easy to do, because the space inside the Chaos Ring was limited, and the Heaven Destroyer was very large. There were too many creatures. Even if he used the Chaos Ring to transport them, it was not possible to transport them all at once. It had to be done several times. And if they passed through the Void Zone, it would take a long time to go back and forth. And this was after he had broken through to the Origin Realm. Otherwise, it would be even more difficult. Lu Ming told them his idea, and Mulin's, Huangling, and Dandan naturally nodded in agreement. Immediately, the 4 of them set off. Lu Ming originally wanted to let Mulin's and Huangling stay in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm to cultivate, but the 2 of them had been away for too long, and their family and friends were also in the Eastern Universe. How could they stay there? They insisted on returning with Lu Ming. Soon, the 4 of them arrived at the entrance of the ancient transmission path. This entrance was also the last stop Lu Ming had made when he came to the Western Universe. Mulin's and Huangling had also been teleported here to the Western Universe. Coming back again, the 2 of them had a lot of thoughts. Moreover, The two of them felt that this was not the end of the ancient transmission path. It might just be a point in the middle. However, the path that continued down was cut off for some reason. This conjecture happened to be the same as Lu Ming's. Lu Ming had always felt that this was not the end of the ancient transmission path. As for where the end led to, he could only slowly explore it in the future. The four of them stepped on the transmission path and teleported to the Eastern universe. After a while, they were teleported to a strange place. There was a small stone house here. I don't know where the senior who created the ancient transmission path is. Back then, he left behind an opportunity here. If not for that, the two of us would not have achieved what we have today. Mulan sighed. Back then, she and Huangling had obtained a great opportunity here. They had been transformed by the creation jade liquid, and their talent and potential had been greatly improved. Of course, they had also obtained a few other treasures. However, those treasures were too profound, and they did not know how to use them. They had shown Lu Ming before, but Lu Ming could not figure it out. They stopped here for a while, and then continued to set off. After teleporting again and again, they finally returned to the Eastern universe. Then, they went to the Heaven Destroyer's base. It did not take long for them to return to the Heaven Destroyer's base. Lu Ming is back. Before Lu Ming arrived at the Heaven Destroyer's base, he was discovered by the Heaven Destroyer's people. The news immediately spread. From afar, Lu Ming saw that the Heaven Destroyer's base was enveloped in a huge formation. There was no doubt that it was a complete source-level formation. Moreover, Lu Ming extended his spiritual consciousness and could clearly feel that there was an origin guarding some important positions of this source-level formation. Once a great enemy approached, these origins would activate the formation and burst out with powerful power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Lu Ming arrived, a large number of figures flew out of the Heaven Destroyer's base. Lu Ming, young master. Lu Ming smiled. He saw Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Ling Yue Bubbles and the others. Of course, there were also a few Origin Realm existences. Thinking about it, it had been hundreds of years since Lu Ming left the Western universe. Everyone was naturally very concerned and worried. Now that they met, they were naturally very happy. Chapter 51-28. However, when Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others discovered Mulan's and Huangling, they were naturally overjoyed. Mulan's and Huangling had been gone for far too long without any news. Everyone was afraid that something had happened to the two of them. They never thought that Lu Ming would really be able to find the two of them this time. Lu Ming, your cultivation. Suddenly, someone cried out in disbelief. The person who spoke was Ku Wangyuan. Ku Wangyuan was an early reciprocity expert of Heaven Destroyer. In addition, the reciprocity experts of Heaven Destroyer also looked at Lu Ming in shock. Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others were only peak divine masters, so they could not see Lu Ming's exact cultivation. However, Ku Wangyuan and the others could vaguely sense it. Lu Ming stood there casually, but he gave them a feeling that he was as heavy as a mountain and unfathomable. Divine masters would not give them such a feeling. Only reciprocity experts could give them such a feeling, and it was very likely that their cultivation was even higher than theirs. However, how was this possible? Several hundred years ago, Lu Ming was only a divine master. In just a few hundred years, Lu Ming had broken through to reciprocity? This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that they were currently under the Origin Tribulation. Under the Origin Tribulation, were divine masters not supposed to break through to reciprocity? How could Lu Ming reach reciprocity? No, it's definitely not reciprocity. I must be mistaken. Perhaps Lu Ming has some kind of treasure on him that makes me feel like this. Ku Wangyuan thought to himself. The other reciprocity experts were similar. Seniors, Lu Ming managed to break through to the Origin Realm not long ago. Lu Ming replied with a smile. What? The reciprocity experts almost bit their tongues. They stared blankly at Lu Ming. They were all stunned. What did Lu Ming say? He really broke through to reciprocity? How was this possible? Although King Ku venerate Yuan, and the others were ancient and had lived for a long time, they knew very little about the matters of the previous era. They knew even less about the outside of the universe. Therefore, He had no idea that he could make a breakthrough under the Great Tribulation of Source. He only thought that it was impossible to make a breakthrough under the Great Tribulation of Source. Therefore, now that Lu Ming had shattered their understanding, one could imagine how shocked they were. Lu Ming, have you broken through to origin? Xian Yanqing and the others were also very shocked. Of course, this was followed by great joy. Young master is always so powerful. Autumn Moon's eyes were twinkling with little stars. I was lucky to break through. Come, let's go in and talk. Lu Ming said. Everyone entered the Heaven Destroyer's base. Swish. Swish. When they entered the base of the Heaven Destroyer, space ripped open and people constantly tore through space. Needless to say, they were all reciprocity experts. There were over a dozen of them in total. They were all early-stage reciprocity experts of the Heaven Destroyer. Heaven Destroyer had a total of more than 40 reciprocity experts, but half of them were early-stage reciprocity experts. When these people appeared, they constantly scanned Lu Ming with their spiritual consciousness. They were all shocked and in disbelief. It's really reciprocity. It's unbelievable. He can actually make a breakthrough under the Great Tribulation of Source. He's really a genius. These reciprocity experts were all sighing. Greetings, seniors. Lu Ming clasped his fist. You're too polite. We're at the same level now. There's no need to call us seniors. That's right. Those reciprocity experts. Among cultivators, everything was based on cultivation. Age was not important. This was because reciprocity experts had the same lifespan as the universe. If the universe was immortal, they would be immortal. To them, time was no longer a concept. Everything depended on cultivation. If their cultivation was similar, they would be peers. Lu Ming, what have you experienced in the Western universe over the years? Xian Yanqing asked. She knew that for Lu Ming to be able to break through to reciprocity, it was definitely not that simple. He must have experienced a lot. Immediately, Lu Ming briefly recounted his experiences over the years. Whether it was Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, and the others, or those reciprocity experts, they were all dumbfounded. This was because many things that Lu Ming said had broken their understanding. There are actually remnants of the human race from the previous era. So there really is an outerverse. Now the universe channel has actually opened. Many reciprocity experts could not suppress their emotions and let out low cries. At the same time, their expressions were very heavy. It was an eventful time. Although the people of the outerverse were still in the Western universe and had not entered the Eastern universe, it was only a matter of time. There were also many ruins in the Eastern universe. The people of the outerverse would definitely not let them go. At that time, the Eastern universe would definitely be in chaos. I came back this time to transfer the people of the Heaven Destroyer to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Everyone, what do you think? Lu Ming looked at the reciprocity experts. Okay, I agree. I agree too. There was almost no discussion. The reciprocity experts nodded one after another. There was indeed nothing to consider. Now that the Great Era had arrived, the Heaven Destroyer was like a lonely boat floating on the ocean, which could be swallowed by the waves at any time. The Ashen Azure Divine Realm was the human race of the previous era. It had a deep foundation and powerful experts overseeing it. It was many times safer than the Heaven Destroyer's station. How could they not agree? Then everyone, let's start mobilizing and making preparations. Lu Ming said. The reciprocity experts nodded and left one after another to mobilize the people of the Heaven Destroyer. The Heaven Destroyer's station was formed by huge fragments of the continent, where a large number of living beings lived. It would not be easy to transfer them. It would take some time. Next, Lu Ming went to meet his parents, Lu Shenhuang, and the others. Soon several months passed. The Heaven Destroyer's preparations had been completed. A large number of living beings entered the Chaos Ring. Of course, Lu Ming's family and friends had already entered the Chaos Ring. As expected, I can't take them all in one go. Lu Ming whispered. According to the scale, it would take at least 3 trips to take them all away. When the Chaos Ring was almost filled, Lu Ming set off along the ancient transmission path and returned to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Mulins and Huang Ling followed Lu Ming back to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. As the two of them were more familiar with the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, they needed their help in the future planning. After returning to the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, Lu Ming contacted a few acquaintances. Fortunately, there were people in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Not long after, two old men came together. They were two reciprocity experts. Now Lu Ming was very familiar with the reciprocity experts of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Originally, some of them had a problem with Lu Ming, but now their impression of Lu Ming had changed greatly. "Little brother Lu Ming, why are you looking for us?" an old man asked. "It's like this." Lu Ming told them the purpose of his visit. In order to transfer so many living beings of the Heaven Destroyer, the higher-ups of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm had to arrange it. These old men were now the higher-ups of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.